So, this video comes with a trigger warning. Parental discretion is advised. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I had to put some humor in this because this video is not going to be light. I want to talk about our voices as women and why it is important that we have one. If you grew up in a household that made you feel like your words didn't matter, that you didn't matter, so what's the point of saying anything? That can be very, very, very dangerous. And I don't think we even realize it. You can get into a relationship and have thoughts and feelings, but because you don't think that it matters what you say, how will you get what you want? You could be keeping yourself from a good thing or staying in a bad thing because you're not talking. Communication is very important. But because we're taught that our words don't matter, that we shouldn't speak up, that we should be seen and not heard, we show ourselves more than we allow ourselves to be heard. That's why sometimes cries for help are not always done with words, they're done with actions. But I want to talk about, and hopefully there's some women out there who have daughters, and makes them examine if they allow their daughter to talk or their son, because this is for everybody. I said it's for women, but it's for everybody. But in the end, it will be for the women. It'll go back to just the women. But you all bear with me. Men, if you have any daughters, I encourage the parents of today to really encourage their children to have a voice. I'm 33. In the generation before me and my own, we weren't really taught to express ourselves. If we spoke up for ourselves, even in a non-disrespectful way, our elders would see it as disrespect, when it's really just their ego that's bruised and they're trying to use their parenting as a level of dominance and control over you so that you don't say that truth again. It's another way of keeping you silent. Now, because I grew up this way, I encourage my son to express his thoughts and feelings, and it's gotten to the point where he now talks too much. Not that he's disrespectful, but it's a balance of, okay, I've said what I said, we are done. But kids don't get that. When you've given them the freedom to talk, they don't know when they should shut up. Let's just be honest. It's a gift that is hard to manage. But I'm not mad at it because I'd rather him talk than to say nothing at all. I encourage my son that he can come to me and his father, and that he develops a relationship where he's comfortable enough to talking to his cousins and even my parents about things. I want him to be comfortable with expressing his emotions, because I, at 33 years old, still struggle with being comfortable with expressing my emotions. It comes because of my lack of trust. But the way I grew up is the foundation. And I'm not going to blame everything on my parents, but if you were taught that you don't matter, you're taught that your voice doesn't matter. So why bother? One of the most dangerous things you can do is take away someone's voice. Not only their right to choose, but their right to speak and have an opinion. I like to believe that people can be set free by words. I can say something that can give you insight to help change your life, and you can do the same for me. But if we don't have this conversation, how will it happen? Insight. But the reason I made this video a trigger warning is there's this thing that happens. I don't know if it still happens today, but I was talking to a friend of mine about this, and he had no idea that there are times when we as women don't speak. We talk amongst ourselves or in our thoughts mostly. We don't even tell anyone else this, but there are some women who have given their bodies to men or boys or guys, and they didn't want it. and they don't say anything for whatever reason. You want to make the guy happy, or maybe there was sexual intimidation. But if that wasn't the case, you can say no. And the thing is, that guy would probably most likely respect what you have to say, but you just don't say anything. You just deal with it. Because we, as women, especially Black women, are taught to just deal with it and tell no one. We were taught to suffer in our silence and in our secrets. So I was talking to my friend that I've experienced this and other women and young girls have, and he was floored. It messed him up pretty bad, and he asked a few women. He's like, "Have you ever experienced a moment where you didn't say anything, or a physical violation might have happened, or something happened that you didn't consent for, you didn't ask for, you didn't want?" And they said yes. And some of their stories were horrific. Some of them had stories where they did speak and the guy just continued. Some of their stories were, "Yeah, I didn't want to do it, but I did it anyway." When we are taught to be silent, it can be deadly and it can be dangerous. But most of all, it is traumatizing and harmful and hurtful. We as women and people have to find our voice. For men, it's different. They were taught not to have any emotions. Doesn't mean that they don't have them. But you teach them to not deal with their emotions, and that they're definitely not talking about them. Or if they try, someone shuts them down because they don't know how to deal with it, because they themselves are the blind leading the blind. It's a horrible thing. We as women were taught to feel, and we can talk to our girlfriends about things. But what if there are no girlfriends? What if there's no one? And for young men, they may have people, but they just don't talk about it. That's why therapy is so important, and I'm glad we live in a day and age where people are open to it. Before the pandemic, they should have been doing it. And well after the pandemic, they need to keep doing it. We all need therapy, okay? Don't worry about what your elders say. They didn't live their life holding on to their stuff. And you may be a consequence of it. And your feelings and your trauma may be the consequences of them not getting the help they needed. Now, mind you, I know therapy wasn't available to them back in the day, but still. Better decisions were, okay? But when people do the best they can, they do it. But their best can sometimes not be good enough for the people around them. And you're left to deal with the pieces in silence. We as young men and women need to find our courage, our strength, and our voices. We should never let anybody take away our right to speak. People may not like it. That is their problem. You get that off your soul and your heart and your mind and your spirit and out of your body. Because if you're holding on to it, it's staying in your body and it's going to find a place inside of you to attach itself to. And that part will either get sick, infected, or cause dis-ease and comfort and make you sick. Or cause pain in that particular area that won't go away, and you'll have no idea where it came from. We all have pains. And they come on us because some of it is just body, some of it is just genetics, and some of it is within our wheelhouse to control, to work that thing out. It's called, I believe it's called metaphysical. When something in your spirit is harmed or compromised and it takes hold of you in your body. Like lower back pain means that you're carrying on the weight of something. Nausea and intestinal problems comes from you not speaking how you feel. And it's really a thing. In joint pain and pain in the knees and pain in the neck and migraines. They all mean something. They're tied to your emotions. You should look it up. Look up metaphysical and type in a current pain that you have and see what pops up. You'd be surprised. It's one of the consequences of not using your voice. Now, I know it's hard. I say all of this and yet I still struggle. But it's because of trust issues. But we're not here for me. We're here for you. We really have to learn to speak up and speak for ourselves. Nobody else is going to do it. You can't wait on your aunt that knows you so well to speak up for you. They can speak to you, but if you still don't speak up for yourself, it's falling on deaf ears. Finding your voice is hard when you don't even know who you are. But even if you don't know who you are, you can start off with knowing how you feel first, because that's what matters. Then you'll possibly discover more of who you are when you reveal more of who you are through your words. I'm going too deep. That probably made no sense. It just felt like it had to come out. But we need to speak for ourselves, guys. We really do. It can lead us down some paths that are dangerous, that can compromise our bodies and our dignities. It can cause you to agree to have sex with someone that you didn't want to have sex with, but because you don't know how to speak up for yourself or don't even know that you have a voice, you will think, the person on the other end will think that you're consenting because you didn't say no, but you didn't quite say yes. And there's a gray area. And you look up and you've gotten yourself involved in a sexual act that you actually didn't even want. This is a thing. Don't say it's not if you've never experienced it. You're not qualified to speak on it because you never experienced it, but there is someone who has. And it happens a lot to women, and it happens a lot to guys as well, and boys. It does. Again, when you're a kid, you don't know because you don't have the words. Some of it is not even because you haven't been taught. You just don't know. My son is 8, and he knows he has the power to speak, but sometimes he doesn't know how or what to say. So maybe it's not that we need to find our voice. Maybe it's that we need to find the power to speak. I think that's what it is. We need to know our power so that we can speak. I think that's where it starts. Because like I said, my son knows that he can. He has the power. He's empowered to speak. But sometimes he just doesn't know how. And this is when we as a society and as a people have to learn to gather patience to have a listening ear. And be careful who you speak to. Now that's another thing. You can talk, great. You express yourself. Be careful who you speak to because that person can trigger you and make you go back into your shell of silence. You have to be careful to see if that person is equipped to handle what you have to say. If that person rejects what you have to say, they're most likely rejecting the truth in themselves, and it's not about you. You might have triggered the truth in them that they don't want to talk about. You have to be very careful with who you choose to speak to. That person can make or break your own confidence in yourself. And hopefully, we have to develop the strength and the discernment to not take it personal. If I'm talking to you, I'm prepared to hear whatever it is you have to say. If I know I'm in a space where I don't think I'm going to be able to receive what you have to say, then maybe I shouldn't speak it right now. There are times when I get very vulnerable, and all the YouTube videos and all the commentary and all the podcasts that I listen to, they're too much for me sometimes. And I have to fall back and find something positive to refuel myself, or just sit and not listen to anything at all, but listen to my heart and my mind and what it's saying. That can encourage you to speak up for yourself. And then God can put someone in your life to talk to so-and-so about it, or write it down. And then that's when you'll get a random, I want to talk to you about this, or this is on my mind. You have a conversation, it just comes out. So it's about knowing that you are worthy, that your words are worthy, knowing that you have every right to speak because God gave you a voice to do so. There are people who can't talk and they express themselves. What's your excuse with your word having self? Babies don't know how to talk, but they express themselves. No one's told them that they couldn't yet. Life hadn't gotten to them yet. like it got to you. But you need to know that you're worthy of speaking. You are worthy of addressing your thoughts, your views, and your opinions. You are worthy of it. Because it is no good for you to hold on to it. So if you discover that you're worthy and you know that you have this power, you have to, or this ability to speak for yourself. Because there's some people who can't, who have other people, proxies by law, speaking for them. My grandmother had a stroke and she could no longer speak. It was frustrating because she had her mind about her, her wit, she had it all about her, but she couldn't talk. And this is when you really got to know somebody and trust somebody to speak for you. There are people who physically can't and want to and are dying to. And you with your word having self won't. Your ability to have words and you won't use them. Use them. The things we take for granted. Or how it's a mindset. It's really a mindset. This is why, I would recommend knowing your worth. And even if you're getting to know your worth, because I'm still getting to know my worth, I want to know that I have the power to speak for myself. Empower yourself. Be empowered. Even if it's to tell people the uncomfortable truths, the things that they don't want to hear, the things you don't want to say. If it's on your heart and you have to speak it, speak it. But you also have to have a level of discernment to see when and how you should speak. Because I think that how we talk to people is important. Most people don't care about that. Don't think because you're a teacher and you got truth and you can speak it in a brass way, in a way that represents your personality, when as students, everyone learns and receives differently. So you can sit there and cuss your class out and some people be okay with it because that's what they used to. Other people will be sitting there, won't get the message because of how you're choosing to talk. So you also have to be careful with how you talk, the way you speak. If it's coming from your heart, just trust that. And it'll come out to the right person who is meant to handle it. And then you have to know who you can talk to. I know this sounds like a lot of rules. I want to just encourage you to speak your mind. But when you've gotten to that point where you can speak your mind, there are other responsibilities that come with this responsibility. And that's what I'm talking about. So you have to find the right people that you can trust. And sometimes you can find a trusted person, but with this particular information, they're just not going to have it that day. Because they have their own thoughts and feelings and experiences and issues as well that have nothing to do with you. I was talking to my grandmother about something and it really hurt my feelings. And she's one that I can talk to about almost any and everything. But this day was not the day for us. And that's okay. I like to talk to God first before I address an issue with someone else. And sometimes I have friends and sometimes God just wants me just to talk to him. Sometimes I obviously have to talk to someone or the person I'm meant to talk to and I just don't. Don't overthink it. Don't be afraid. These are your feelings. Trust your heart enough to let it speak for itself. And if the other person has a hard time receiving it, they've heard it. And they won't forget it. Because of how it made them feel. It's attached to them now. Maybe they were meant to hear it. I remember I was at work. And I talked about depression. And I was nervous to talk to it about this particular person. I was really nervous to talk about it. Because it's like we're at work. This is a professional setting. How dare I talk about depression, But it is a thing. And I was talking to someone whose brother had died a few weeks ago. And he was struggling with depression. And I'm like, wow, that just opened up something. I hope that it didn't make him sad, but to have a moment where he could talk about it. And I knew that he had lost someone. But he didn't talk about it because, this is work. You got to be professional. But to have that brief moment in connecting with someone in such a way, it was a good thing. And that can open up now a safe space. And then I started looking around and noticed that other people were depressed too. So it opened up something. Someone had to open the door. And then who knows, maybe I'd say something like, hey, have you thought about therapy and different ways you can express your pain? Have you talked to someone? Do you play video games? Do you write? Let's find a solution. I'll tell you what works for me. So, or even if just having a moment of just talking about that pain that he had for a brief moment, I think it did something. It lets you know sometimes that you're not alone. Talking is powerful, and we need to do it more. Even if it's just sitting here like I'm doing, talking on my phone, putting it out there into the world. It's a form of therapy for me, and hopefully it helps you too. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that it encourages you to look within yourself, to find your beauty, your worth, your balance, your passion, your voice. So thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.